Hey guys, just a quick announcement. You can now follow me on Instagram where I teach you one Chinese word a day. My username is Chinese Talk Ease. Now let's start the show. Journey to Chinese Fluency Podcast, episode number 10.
Embarrassing moment, culture insights, proven methods to achieve Chinese fluency. Skip that learning curve with the Journey to Chinese Fluency Podcast. Now, your host, Victor Yang.
Hello everyone, Victor Yang here and welcome to Journey to Chinese Fluency. Today I am joined by Matt Ekhoff. Matt grew up on a farm in the US. He spent some time learning Chinese in China and he is now living in Chicago in the US. Matt is now 28 years old, working for a Chinese airline. Here's one interesting fact Matt shared with me in his own words. The coolest thing I did in China was take a bike trip through the countryside. When I was sitting by a lake eating my lunch, dozens of fish started to jump out of the water. I never knew China has such beautiful nature. That is definitely a super cool experience. Hello, Matt. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Victor. Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to share with us your journey to Chinese fluency?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So first, Matt, feel free to help us to fill in the blank a bit for the introduction.
Okay, yeah, like you said, everything you said happened. Right now, I'm living in America with my Chinese wife, so I'm still speaking Chinese every day. And at the office, my coworkers are Chinese, so I can actually, even though I'm in America, I'm still speaking Chinese almost more than English.
Wow, that's awesome. How long have you been studying Chinese for?
Well, actually, when I was in college, originally I wanted to study Japanese just because, like a lot of people, I watch anime and read manga. So I wanted to learn Japanese. But then we had a group of Chinese college students come to our school to learn. And after I met them, I became really good friends with them. And that kind of inspired me to learn Chinese. So that was in 2008. So almost like 10 years now.
Wow, that's a pretty long time.
Mm-hmm.
Please share with our listeners why you learned Chinese at the beginning.
Right, because Japanese has very, culture that's very easy for us to access. We can watch the anime or read the manga, but there's not very much about China that we can read about in America or learn about. So I think it helps that we have these kind of cultural exchanges or these studying opportunities that we can meet people from other countries. Because if I never would have met those Chinese people, I would have never had a reason to learn Chinese. So that they were my motivation, just making friends with them.
Right. So you were interested in the Chinese culture and basically want to know more about China.
Exactly. Through them, they kind of taught me, they would invite me to their home to like make dumplings or something like that. So I really owe everything to them.
Right. That's a great motivation. So obviously Chinese is a difficult language. After you have passed beginner stage in learning Chinese, what's been motivating you after that? Or was your interest at the beginning your only motivation?
No, you know what? And I think what really helped me outside of just making friends is that China has so many great communication tools. Like back in the beginning, it was QQ. Everybody talked online, and eventually that moved to WeChat. But there's always been a way like where you can make friends online and just talk with them. And you don't need anything special. You just need a computer or a phone. So that kind of helped me through the times where maybe I couldn't talk to Chinese people. And that really kept me motivated. You can just turn on QQ or turn on WeChat and just find some Chinese people to talk to.
Oh, that's interesting. So you were from the QQ time.
That's right. That's right. When I started learning Chinese, nobody had WeChat. Everything was through QQ.
That's true. That's true. I remember using QQ as well.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who have no idea what QQ is, it's basically a Chinese chat room software, just like MSN. That was a very popular software in China that, pretty much all Chinese use it to chat with each other. People still use it, but now it's pretty much replaced by WeChat.
Yeah, and it's funny, now QQ is very out of date now, so.
I know, I can't even remember the last time I used QQ, but I used to use it a lot. I used to chat with strangers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Please share with us your method of learning Chinese. What's been the most effective technique or method that's been working for you learning Chinese?
Well, I am really forgetful. So if I don't write anything down, I will definitely forget it. So like whenever I had a conversation on QQ, or if I had maybe just a little study lesson with somebody, I just wrote everything down, and I have like a little notebook that is just hundreds of pages of notes, because if I don't write anything down, I'll forget it. And that knowledge will be wasted. So I think the biggest thing isn't there's some secret, it's just writing down everything that you've learned so you won't lose it.
Right, that's interesting. So at the beginning, when you started learning Chinese, did you start learning Chinese like speaking, reading, and writing all at the same time?
No, I didn't, and that's kind of my biggest regret is the book I bought. They maybe thought that foreigners don't like to learn Chinese characters, so I spent maybe the first year or something of studying Chinese, not learning characters. So like when I talked on QQ, it was all in pinyin, and I think that really hurt me because honestly, it's very hard to understand pinyin without the characters, because one pinyin can have many different characters associated with it. So my advice would be just to start reading at the very beginning. So once you have those characters, then you can speak and other people can understand you, or you can write and other people can understand you.
Wow, that's very interesting point of view. I guess it's probably because you needed to chat online in Chinese. So did you learn your Chinese using QQ most of the time?
Oh yeah, I mean, for the first few years of learning, I never went to a Chinese class, or I never actually had a real teacher, just because it's kind of boring learning that way.
Hmm.
Like I said, there's no motivation. So I think just talking on QQ and talking with people your same age, or even who you are romantically interested in,
Hmm.
gives you a huge motivation, and you will just naturally pick up the language.
Right, that's so cool. So how did you learn your pronunciation then?
Actually, I did have, now that I think about it, there was a DVD that I got. I believe it was called Yo-Yo Chinese, if I'm correct.
Hmm.
And it is very important when it comes to a pronunciation that you get someone who speaks very standard Mandarin, because as we all know, many different Chinese will have different accents.
Hmm.
And if you learn from someone who has an accent, you can get the pronunciation completely wrong.
That's totally right. So definitely need to learn from someone who can speak the authentic Mandarin pronunciation.
Exactly.
So you learn the Chinese characters by writing them down, and you learn the pronunciation by using the DVD.
That's right.
Cool. So did you ever go to a Chinese course, or you just completely started off on QQ?
No, you know what? I was just on. So I was at that time. I was in my junior year of college. So
Hmm.
my junior and senior year, I just pretty much made friends with Chinese people and talked to them in a very casual, setting. And then after I graduated, I moved to China to teach English. So
Mm.
I just kind of dived right into the country and to the language. And it wasn't after I lived in China for maybe a year or two that I started having like more professional courses to teach me even more.
Right. So basically, you started learning some basic Chinese phrases with your Chinese college friends.
Right.
And then after that, you moved to China to teach English. And that's when you started doing some serious studies.
Exactly. I mean, there's only so much you can learn through casual conversation. That's just the basic everyday Chinese. But if you really want to learn more and go deeper and make your level go higher, you finally have to, sit down and be very, you know, professional about it and get a teacher who really knows how to teach you and make you better.
Mm. So when you moved to China to teach English, which part of China did you go to?
Okay, so I went to a province called Liaoning and a city called Dalian,
Hmm.
and this is the what do they say, the northeast of China.
Yep.
So that's farther north than Beijing. So the weather not so great all the time,
Hmm.
but the Chinese is a little easier to understand than the southern provinces. The dialect isn't so strong.
Right. So you did have some difficulties understanding the dialects in Liaoning, I guess.
Yeah, the problem is the like ZH and ZI sound, they get mixed up. So for example, they might not say kuaizi with a ZI, they
Hmm.
say kuaizhi with a ZHI.
Yes, I know that one. I guess you had to learn from the DVD. Maybe that's a very important part of your pronunciation learning.
Yeah, so it helped that I had that foundation to know, okay, these people are speaking a dialect. That's not standard Mandarin. Because if you don't have that comparison, you might just accept that as the right way to talk.
Yes, yes. So once you have passed your beginner's level, did you adopt a different methods of learning, like when you reach your intermediate level?
Yeah, so that's the time that I actually chose to go to a Chinese university to study Chinese.
Right.
Just because I could have a teacher who would teach me not just about the language, but also about different topics. For example, economics,
Mhm.
history, and culture. And that's too where you learn more about the country because just talking to people on the street, you won't learn about these deeper things. Like I said, ancient Chinese history. You need to get that from someone who's learned about that before.
Mhm. So what have been your biggest challenge in learning Chinese and how did you overcome it?
So I think for Americans, our language doesn't have accent. It's just we just have syllables and that's it. So I think for Americans or a lot of English speakers, accents are very challenging. And what I found the mistake I made, and when I listened to other people, the mistake they made is trying to talk too fast. Because English we can talk very fast and people can still understand us. So I just slow it down. Each accent each Chinese character I just sounded out very carefully. So maybe I won't say 我今天吃饭了. I would
Mhm.
be 我今天吃饭了. And maybe you sound kind of childish or something, but people can understand you. And eventually you can increase the speed.
So you definitely need to get your tones and your pronunciation right
Right.
before you speed things up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's been your challenge. And the way you overcome it was by starting slow.
Exactly.
Share with us an embarrassing or funny moment when you were learning Chinese.
Okay, so I was living in Dalian, China, and I had a friend from a different college who wanted me to come to his college. So I said, no problem. And he sent me a text message of the address in Chinese. So I got in a taxi cab and I told him the college, and he went to the college. But as a lot of people know, colleges are very big and they have different doors. And in China, they usually separate it like north, east, south, west door.
Mhm.
So I didn't know that. And I looked at the character and I thought the character said 4, 4. And so I told the driver, "Oh, go to door number 4 of this university." And he could not think. He's like, "Man, does this university have a door number 4?" And so we were looking, and we talked to people in the street. "Oh, do you know the door number 4 of this school?" And we could not find it. Finally, I showed him my phone, and he's like, "Guy, this character is not 4. It's Xi, Dongxi Nanbei, the Xi." Oh
Right.
my God, that was so embarrassing because to me, who not used to looking at characters, the character 4 looks a lot like the character Xi.
Yes.
So I was very embarrassed.
Right. That's a funny one. Well, cool. So now tell us a success story, a most rewarding moment after you have become fluent in Chinese.
You know what? Now that I think about it, my most rewarding moment also happened in a taxi cab.
Right.
One time I was getting on a taxi at a really horrible night. It was dark out and it was raining. And I just, hailed a cab and he pulled over really quickly. And I got in and I just said my address in Chinese, which, I've been used to saying a long time. And he was just talking to me very normally, making conversation. And about 5 minutes through the ride, he looked over and he's like, "Oh my God, you're a foreigner." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, hi."
Wow.
And he's like, "Oh, I didn't even realize." So that tells me that I was actually fluent enough that he didn't even detect that I was a foreigner. So I felt really proud at that moment.
Wow. That is an awesome, rewarding moment for
Yeah.
sure. Seriously, that's well done on that.
Thank you so much, Victor.
So you mentioned you married a Chinese girl.
Yeah, that's right. She was from Dalian and we moved to America together.
Wow. So how did you meet her? Did you meet her on QQ?
No, I actually have met girls through QQ before, so I definitely recommend that. But I met her at an English school. A lot of Americans or English speakers teach at English schools,
Sure.
and a lot of the teachers there are girls. So it's very convenient, for meeting people, and you're at work every day, so you get to know each other, and eventually a work relationship just kind of turns into a romantic relationship.
Awesome. Learning Chinese definitely have that benefit for you.
Exactly. You can meet lots of pretty girls.
So how would you compare your life before you have learned Chinese and your life after you have learned Chinese?
Completely different. Before, like you mentioned at the beginning, I grew up on a farm, so I wasn't very confident speaking with other people because I didn't see that many people actually. But after I moved to China, for one thing, there are a ton of Chinese people all over the place. You'll constantly be talking to people and getting practice talking and improving your social skills. And also, when you learn to speak in a different language, when you go back to your mother language, you feel super confident because you know exactly how to express yourself. So I think moving to China and learning another language improved my confidence and improved my social skills.
Beautiful. That's great. You definitely moved from, a very quiet place from the farm and to,
Yeah, a
China.
city with millions of people.
Yeah, the biggest population. So that's a huge, huge change for you. So did
hmm
you enjoy that?
Yeah, you know what? I even though I moved back to America, I cannot wait to go back. It's just everything is so alive there. I mean, even if you go out at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, everything is just so alive. There's people everywhere. It's so safe. I'm from Chicago, which I don't know if anybody knows is a very violent city. If you go out at night, you might be robbed, you might be shot. You have no idea what's going to happen. But China, you feel very safe. So that's what I love about that country.
Cool. And the other thing you mentioned was that you now work in a Chinese airline, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So when I go to work, everybody around me is Chinese, and they're all speaking, well, maybe not Mandarin, but some dialect of Chinese. So I can still get that, taste of China, even though I'm in America.
That's so cool. So basically, every day you speak Chinese at work.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? That's what I like about this job is that you can still stay connected, both culturally and from a language standpoint to the country that you love.
Cool. So how did you find that job? Did you find that job after you have moved back to the US?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I just got on Indeed.com, which is a very popular job search engine in America. I just went on Indeed.com and I just searched Chinese language, and I searched my area and they came up. So I thought, hey, why not try it?
Right. Indeed.com. So INDEED.com.
Yes, that's right.
So for those listeners who want to find a job, that's the website to go to.
Yeah, and especially you can search by language, so you can look for jobs who are looking for bilingual Mandarin speakers.
Right. How many years did you spend your time in China?
So in total, I was there for 6 years, from the very beginning of 2011 until last year summer. So that would be the summer of 2016.
Right. So you just came back from China back to US.
Yeah, actually, I've only been in America for less than a year.
Wow. Do you feel comfortable coming back after spending so much time in China?
Actually, after going back to America, I feel America is very outdated. Like in China right now, you can pay for everything with your phone. You just pull up whatever app you use, and they will give you a little barcode, and like the convenience store or wherever will scan that, and you just pay. But here, it's still like all cash and credit card. I feel like we're so living in the Stone Age.
Yep. Yep. I'm in Australia. I feel even worse.
Yeah, I bet.
Yep. Well, share with us one special thing about the Chinese culture that is different to your own culture.
Okay, so one big difference I noticed when I was there is that if you are a good student and you care about your studies, you'll be very respected. Because in America, I mean, you've seen American movies like if people study hard, we think they're a nerd and we make fun of them and they have no friends. But in China, it's unbelievable. If you study hard and you get good grades, like everybody wants to be your friend. I thought that was so funny and it's good too.
Mm. Because in China, taking exams is super, super important.
Right. So you want to have somebody that can help you out.
That's right. So that's definitely people look up to people who can study well in their exams. That's definitely a big culture difference.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's your favorite city in China?
Well, I didn't travel around that much, but I did go around the Northeast, and I kind of liked the smaller cities, like that is still not so built up. you
Mm.
still see a lot of the like old culture, the old buildings, the old way of doing things. Like for example, the city, well, the village that my wife grew up in, I learned how they harvest corn, and they do everything by hand. And actually, what they will do is they will light the whole field on fire so that the corn stalk will become weaker, and they can just pick the corn more easily. So like you see so many things
Wow.
that you've never seen before, but you have to go to these little small villages in China.
Sounds amazing. I've never been to any small villages since I grew up.
I recommend it.
Wow. So where about like is that?
So it was all in Liaoning province. I mean,
Mm,
over there, it's a lot of agriculture. It's not a lot of industry.
that's true. There's a lot of corn in Liaoning.
That's right. It's not like down south where you have, a lot of big factories and things like that, and the economy is really good.
Mm,
I'll admit the economy in Liaoning is really bad. It's just mostly small farmers.
mm. Right. So your wife come from the rural area, and
Yes,
did she move to Dalian too?
to study and to work. Yeah. So that's the thing too. I don't think people realize when I'm talking about like a village, because I grew up on a farm in America, so
Mm,
I'm kind of like a farm boy. Villages in China are completely different because sometimes they may not have running water. So for example, in the morning, you might have to fill up a huge tub of water, and that's all the water you get for the day. And there might not be like running water to use the restroom or anything like that. So people in the very rural China still have it very tough.
this is getting interesting now because you grew up in a U.S. farm, and then you get to experience the rural lifestyle in China. Maybe you can share with us a bit on the topic, like the difference between a farm, like a rural area in the US compared to the rural area in China.
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. So in America, everything is done by machines, and you have a huge amount of ground that is yours. So you use these huge tractors and everything, and you can make tons of money. So farm life in America is actually pretty great. But in China, number one, because there's so many people, and number two, because the technology isn't there, it's still, very everything is done the old way. So you might only have a very small piece of ground, but that's all you can handle because everything is done by hand. I mean, planting the ground or plowing the ground, or when finally the corn grows up and, like I said, harvesting it, picking the corn, you have to do everything by hand. So it's a very tough life and it demands your whole effort. It's not just like in America. Maybe we plant during this, a plant during the spring, it grows up. In the fall, we harvest it, and in the winter, we take a break. If you're a farmer in China, it's like your whole life is devoted to that.
That's right. That's why there is a big trend of urbanization. People from rural areas are all working hard to get into the big city.
That's right. It's a tough life. I mean, like I said, I thought I was a farm boy. I thought it was tough. But after going there, my wife's like grandma is tougher than I am.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I have no doubt about that. Right. So, is there a tool, an app, or a website that you cannot live without in learning Chinese?
So, like for me, the biggest thing, because there are so many dictionaries, you can get those anywhere, but I want to see this word in a sentence. So, I use two websites that show a lot of sentences. The first one is called juku.com. It's JUKUU.com. And that's kind of like a sentence search engine. And the second one is Youdao, which I just found recently, but it also has a huge database of sentences.
Mhm.
So those help me like to see how to use this word in like the right context.
Cool. I personally use Youdao to actually translate English when
Okay, so
yeah,
we use it the opposite way. I use it for Chinese, you use it for English.
sure, sure. So if you are to recommend to our listeners only one book in learning Chinese and the Chinese culture, what would that be?
You know what? I don't have a specific book, but I just want to tell you guys that get a book that makes you learn the characters right away. If not to write them, at least to read the characters right away, because that is the biggest obstacle. If you are stuck using pinyin, it's going to be so hard to communicate with other Chinese people. So just get a book that, like, from the first couple pages, that is teaching you the characters.
Sure. So teach our listeners your favorite Chinese quote, phrase, or expression.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So my favorite quote is called "天上掉馅儿饼." What this means literally is like what do I want to say? Meat pies doesn't fall from the sky.
Mhm.
And what that means is like something good won't come out of nowhere. So in English, we kind of say like money doesn't grow on trees. Like you can't just get money outside and just pick it. It's the same idea.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? Like there's equivalent saying in English to the Chinese.
Yeah, that's right. And they also use my favorite food in China, which is a xiaobing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. They cook a lot of xiaobing in the northern part of China, isn't it?
That's right. In the northern part, it's more like it's not so much rice. It's just like a lot of like things made from flour, like
Yeah.
noodles or exactly this kind of xiaobing. Everything is made from flour.
That's right. And it's different to the pies we eat in the West, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? We have nothing like this in America or maybe in Australia. So I always wonder, like, if someone opened up a restaurant that sells xiaobing, maybe they would make a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. If you are to give our listeners one single piece of advice in learning Chinese, what would that be?
You know what? Just start talking to Chinese people. They won't make fun of you. They will encourage you because that is what your motivation will come from. Just make friends. I mean, I'm sure there's even maybe there's a Chinese restaurant in your area. Don't be afraid when you're, in the restaurant the next time ordering. Maybe just say like, "Oh, ni hao" or "xie xie," and maybe, they will start talking to you.
Great advice. So, just before we let you go, how can our listeners reach you?
Okay, so you can talk to me on WeChat, where my WeChat username is Matt, MATT, 727-1988.
Right.
Or you can find me on Facebook at Matthew Ekhoff, MATTHEW, then my last name, EKHOFF.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your time sharing with our listeners your story of learning Chinese. I'm sure many people will be inspired by your story. And all the best with what lies ahead of you in the journey of exploring the Chinese language and culture.
Well, thank you for having me, Victor. I love your program.
To our listeners, the show note is now available at ChineseTalkEase.com/10. TalkEase is spelled as TALKEZE. Do you want to learn Chinese for free? Start your own journey to Chinese fluency with my video lessons at ChineseTalkEase.com. TalkEase is spelled as TALKEZE. Also remember to join our Facebook group. Just head over to TalkChineseCommunity.com. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. Each month, I will choose one reviewer and give out a 1-year subscription to all my premium video lessons for free. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next episode.